Hello there, good evening and welcome. On this platform every week, we relive those critical issues and happenings that dot the socio-political landscape of the nation's federal capital to your living room. This is ABUJA Dispatch, and I'm your host, ABUJA Robodo. Let's start off with those stories that made up our news headlines in the outgoing week.
President Muhammadu Buhari says the coming of the United Nations Environmental Programme 50 years ago created the awareness of the need to make climate and environmental action a priority for the entire world. In a congratulatory message to the special session to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the United Nations body today in Nairobi, Kenya, President Buhari lauded the efforts of UNEP and encouraged broader actions to overcome climate change, biodiversity, rising levels of pollution and waste being three major crises threatening the planet. The president used the occasion to reiterate Nigeria's commitment towards addressing the devastating effects of climate change. President Muhammadu Buhari on Wednesday approved the sum of $8.5 million for immediate evacuation of at least 5,000 Nigerians that fled the Russia-Ukrainian war to Poland, Romania, Hungary and Slovakia. The Minister of State for Foreign Affairs of Nigeria, Zubairu Dada, who briefed alongside the Humanitarian Minister, Hajia Saidia Umar Farouk, said the approval came after a joint memo was presented by both the Ministries of Foreign Affairs and Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development at the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. Dada said those to be evacuated include 940 from Romania, 150 from Slovakia and 350 from Poland who have registered for evacuation. The Nigerian Senate has approved financial autonomy for state legislators, judiciary and local governments in the country. The approval came on Tuesday during voting on the report of the Senate Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution 5th Alteration Bills 2022. The senators, during voting on the report, rejected also pensions for presiding officers of the legislature. Out of a total number of 88 senators registered to vote on the bill, 34 voted in support and 53 against the bill. Also rejected were bills to override presidential veto and constitution alteration and to override presidential veto in respect of ordinary money bills. In addition, the Senate also rejected bills for an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 1999 to provide for affirmative action for women in political party administration.
Thanks for staying with us. At last, the much-awaited presidential signature has been appended on the 2021 Electoral Amendment Bill. Indeed, there has always been an attempt after every election in the country to amend the Electoral Act to take care of the deficiencies noticed during such elections. With this new act in place, it behoves the critical players of the electoral process to allow the full functionality of the revised act for a better democratic experience. Watch this.
In any democratic system, an adequate legal framework has been recognized as a prerequisite for credible, free, and fair elections. The challenges with the conduct of elections in Nigeria have their roots In lack of credible legislative framework, which puts constraints on the electoral process, the inability of various stakeholders to play their roles accordingly, and lack of independence of electoral umpire, among others. On return to civil rule in 1999, the first Electoral Act was passed in 2001. This was revised in 2002, 2006, and 2010. Indeed, there has always been an attempt after every election to amend the Electoral Act to take care of deficiencies or mischief noticed during the elections. After several attempts to get these straightened, the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2021 makes provisions for card readers, clearly forbids members of political parties from taking up employment or appointment in INEC, defines over voting clearly, and makes provision for electronic transmission of results, among others. In the views of many, provision for the party primaries is a non-issue. The real challenge is the transparency and credibility of the process, whether it is direct or indirect.
It is not the business of any political party as to how another political party decide to have their candidate in the first instance. And for the electorate, I think what they should look forward to is for political parties to come out with the best candidates that they have. Now, if a political party refuse to put up a system that will guarantee the best of candidates for their party, it is at the expense of that political party to have a candidate that will not be voted for. In essence, if a political party should feed a candidate that is not popular or that is not acceptable to the electorate, they have other contestants in other political parties. And those parties will feed candidates that could be better than the candidate that fails to bring a good candidate. So to me, it pays political parties to produce the best candidate, which can be done not just through the direct primary election. You can use the indirect primary election, or you can even go ahead to do consensus system.
The weightier issues that need to be addressed by political parties relate to internal democracy, using a transparent process where members and structures of the party take decisions without imposition, and conducting party matters resulting to thuggery and violence.
For us, in the 9th National Assembly, this is a fulfillment of one of our cardinal objectives in our legislative agendas in the two chambers. And of course, for the administration too, this is one very important piece of legislation that this administration will bequeath to Nigerians, especially when it comes to the electoral environment.
President Muhammadu Buhari must have felt the pulse of the entire polity as they did what posterity will remember him for by assenting to these all-important bill a few days ago. Mr. President, in assenting to the law, said it had the potentials of revolutionizing the electoral process in the country, even though he asked the National Assembly to amend the law by removing Section 84, subsection 12. This section, according to him, contravenes the right of political office holders to vote or be voted for at political party conventions and congresses.
The practical application of Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Bill 2022 will, if assented to by operation of law, subject serving political office holders to inhibitions and restrictions referred to under Section 40 and 42 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. It is imperative to note that the only constitutional expectation placed on serving political office holders that qualify by extension as public officers within the context of the Constitution is resignation, withdrawal or retirement at least 30 days before the date of the election.
The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has therefore announced the next general elections will now take off with the presidential and National Assembly elections on Saturday, February 25, 2003. A week later than the February 18 date originally scheduled for it. The governorship and state houses of assembly elections will follow 2 weeks later on Saturday, 11th March 2023.
The Commission could not release the detailed timetable and schedule of activities for the general election as it normally would because of the pending enactment of the Electoral Act 2022. The bill has not been signed into law. Therefore, the Electoral Act 2022, together with the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, form the legal basis for conducting all elections in Nigeria.
In specific terms, the Electoral Act provides strict timelines for the implementation of electoral activities based on the date of the general election. It is expected that this timely publication will enable all players in the electoral process to become conversant with the provisions as they prepare for the 2023 general elections.
Thanks for staying with us. Still on the new Electoral Act, there seems to be some gray areas President Buhari noticed in his wisdom, and he consequently advised that such should be worked on by the federal parliamentarians. How plausible is Mr. President's observation? This is the crux of our argument on split views. Stay with us. Welcome to the Split Views segment of our program, ABUJA Dispatch. And on Split Views tonight, we have a legal practitioner here in the nation's federal capital, Mr. Akilabi Akinbade. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much. Pleased to have you.
Now, many of the views that the signing of the electoral bill is a giant stride in the nation's electoral process. How true is this? Is it really a big deal?
Oh, yes, it is, because there are a couple of innovations that are in this new Electoral Act. As you would recall, our electoral process has undergone a lot of changes over the years. We have stumbled, we have fallen, we have made a couple of mistakes, and we have shown that we are more than willing to learn from those mistakes. So to that extent, yes, the new Electoral Act represents a giant stride in our quest towards democratic excellence.
Well, is it all about a legislative framework that can really reposition the nation's electoral system? We have lots of challenges, like you rightly say, voters apathy, monetization of the entire process and all that. Will this legal framework really settle all that?
Well, I rather like your question because, like you rightly said, it's beyond just enacting laws. If there isn't an attitudinal change, if we are not ready to fundamentally affect our destiny as a nation, then these new amendments may not be worth the paper on which they are. That is the very, very undiluted truth. But yes, the amendments will help. At least there's a framework to work with. There's something within which we can aspire. There's something within which we can aspire to be better than we already are. But deep down inside, if there is no attitudinal change, if there is no fundamental shift in our way of thinking, if the woman who sells red pepper in the market, who finds it hard to make maybe 10,000 naira in a day, if you present 20,000 naira to her, she will collect it more often than not. I mean, of course, we have some people who are rather stoic and they may not accept, but more often than not, that is the case. So if we can shift the way we think fundamentally, then these amendments will have the effect that they were intended to have.
Now you must have gone through some of the key areas of the amendment bill. Now, in your own estimation, does the Electoral Act really empower INEC, as it were? Will there be a shift in their achievements? I mean, considering their past efforts, will there be a shift in their achievements in consequent elections?
Yes, if you like you rightly observed, I have gone through the Electoral Act, and yes, there are quite a number of provisions that have given a lot of powers to INEC. I don't think there is any Electoral Act we have had in our history that has empowered INEC as much as this one. If you recall, the last election, the governorship election in Kogi State, one of the candidates died during the election. That caused a bit of controversy. Well, Section 34 of this new act gives the Chief National Electoral Commissioner the power to put a stop to that election and within 14 days announce another election or conduct another election for that office. So there are a number of other provisions like that. I like the repositioning, the repositioning of power. INEC now has more power than it has ever had. And you've had electoral officers they've alleged that they made declarations under duress. Now this act gives them the power to say, we are not going to accept this result because it was declared under duress.
One area that people are really questioning that transmission of results is, the nation's epileptic power situation and network systems and all that. Are you sure that this will really make an impact?
Well, I have been involved in Nigeria's election petitions since 2007, a period of 15 years. I can assure you that even if our laws are perfect, there are people who are still going to complain. It's a process. We'll get there. We know what we have. Yes, epileptic power supply, like you said. There are some areas that probably don't even have network. So how do you want the results to be transmitted within time? We will get there. I'm sure that there is no hard and fast rule as to the application of the act. There are some areas, like I recall in some of the petitions that I was involved in, elections didn't start until 3 o'clock, but they still found a way to accommodate those lapses within the act. So I'm sure that will also work with this one.
Now, Mr. President has asked for the removal of a particular section of the Electoral Act. Legally speaking now, as somebody in the system, are you of the opinion that such section will be expunged? And if expunged, will there be an improvement on the Act?
Yes, I assume you're talking about Section 84, 12, yes, subsection 12.
Yes.
I rather agree with those who have made that provision, asking that political office holders be barred from contesting. The whole idea of a political appointee is this. Usually somebody elected appoints someone to run a particular agency or parastatal. The whole idea is that they have your undivided attention. They have seen a need in the system for someone like you, and you have been appointed for that reason. Now it presupposes that all of your attention is diverted towards that appointment. Now, if you are thinking if you have a gubernatorial ambition, for instance, or you want to go to the National Assembly, resign your post. It doesn't say you will not be able to. It just says that you can't while still holding that same office. It has there was a bit of controversy. Some were ministers, and while they were ministers, they still went to the primaries. And then, of course, there is that. Not exactly an assumption, but of course you are well within your rights to think that someone who has the full paraphernalia of office behind him could use that to influence his emergence and eventual victory at the election. So I think it's a very, very sensible provision. The president may have his reasons for wanting to have that removed. Maybe he also knows the value of those in his cabinet, and he feels that they might be able to offer something.
Because he is saying that this provision is more or less disturbing or distracting the qualification. the fundamental human rights of individuals. That if you are debarring them from participating, now in your own thinking, do you think that the National Assembly will really concede to this?
Well, you never can tell. It's Nigeria. There are how many people in National Assembly? There are quite a lot, so they all have different ideologies. They all have where they are coming from. But then I don't think it's a distraction. I don't think it's a distraction at all, and I don't think it impedes anybody's fundamental rights. you knew, there's something in law we call voluntary non-fit injuria. It means no injury is done to he who consents. Before you accepted the political appointment, you knew the provision of the law, so nobody's going to talk about your rights being infringed.
Now, the National Assembly is proposing in the Constitutional Act amendment a kind of independence candidacy in the electoral position. And right now, of course, the amendment situation is going on at the National Assembly. The process is going on.
Yes.
Do you think that we are ripe for independence candidacy?
Well, I'm sure you'd agree with me that there are people in every society whose political views do not match that of any political party at all. Some people may argue, yes, rightly so, that our democracy is still young, it's just 23 years. But then we are going to have to get there sometime. Are we saying that because someone cannot, because his views do not align with those of any political party at all, then he cannot contest? And then they've put a very, very stringent provision there. They say he must receive 20% endorsement from all registered voters nationwide. So it means that if you are an independent candidate or if you have aspirations to be one, you must be one that is widely known. Now, there are quite a couple of Nigerians today who, if they were to declare that they were independent candidates, might even get some form of endorsement. So I don't think we are too young for it. Someone has to try it first, then we'll know where we go from there.
Now, also being proposed is the creation of 111 seats for female parliamentarians in the federal level, as well as the state level, to enable gender balance, as they call it. Now, what do we make of it?
To be honest, I don't believe there should be any particular provision requiring that. I think at the end of the day, what we want are the best candidates at all levels, irrespective of race, ethnicity, religion, and gender. It shouldn't matter. It really shouldn't matter. And even if it were to matter, certainly not almost 50% of the seats. Let everyone who is qualified go for the posts.
Mr. Akinabi Akinbade is a legal practitioner here in the nation's federal capital, Abuja. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
I would like to discuss the increased load shedding you may have observed in Abuja and other areas in the country. With the reduction in hydro capacity during the dry season, additional load needs to be taken up by our gas plants. We are having maintenance work in the eastern axis around Odupami, leading to reduced power supply from the usually reliable NDPHC Calabar power plant. And we are having challenges at Okoloma gas station, linked to AFAM 6 power plant. We are working with NNPC and other gas suppliers also to improve the pressure on the western axis, and that is precluding these units from reaching optimum supply. These challenges are surmountable, and we have a three-pronged approach as we are executing. One, we are working on more farm gas supply contracts for the power sector backed by improved liquidity. These contracts will have stiff financial penalties for underperformance.
That is how far time can permit us tonight on Abuja Dispatch. For further information, comments, and suggestions, you can reach us out on any of our various social media platforms. That is our package tonight on Abuja Dispatch. Thank you for your time I am Adigboyega Arogbodo. Have a good night.